Hey everyone, this is Derek Jordan. Welcome to the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today my guest is Mike Rivard, who is a composer and sintir player. Welcome, Mike Rivard, to the World Fusion Show.
Hey Derek, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's great to have you, Mike. And sintir, our guests may not be familiar with the instrument, but the sintir is a bass lute from Morocco. And you're a bass player as well, but you got into the sintir at one point during your history. Tell us about how you got into this instrument and your musical background.
Well, as a bass player, I was always drawn to the instrument when I first heard it, which was probably back in the late 80s. And then at that time, I was playing with a musician named Mark Sandman, who your listeners might know his band Morphine. I was in a band of his called Hypnosonics. And Mark turned me on to a CD by Hassan Hakmoun called Gift of the Gnawa. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me, where just everything about the instrument really spoke to me, the setting that Hassan put it in. It's an amazing album. If your listeners aren't familiar with it, Adam Rudolph and Don Cherry and Richard Horowitz.
Yeah, I agree. I love that record. And
yeah.
That's what turned me on to Hassan. And I got Hassan on the show, actually. So he's been on the show.
I saw that episode. It's great.
It's great. Anyway, so keep going. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Hassan's amazing. So I heard that album and I just put it on repeat and just played it over and over and over, and it really turned my head around in a way that I just realized I had to find an instrument and learn to play it. And that took a while. Fast forward a few years, I had started my band Club Delph, and I was in New York about a year after I started the band, and I played with a gig with a musician named Brahim Fribgan, who's from Casablanca and was living in New York at the time, who incidentally also introduced me to Hassan Hakmoun a couple of years later. So Brahim and I became friends. He moved to Boston shortly after that, and I invited him to join the band, and we became roommates for a while after that. His friends at that time had a Moroccan import store called Moroccan Bazaar in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and that was kind of my finishing school for learning to play Moroccan music, was just hanging out after hours and drinking tea and playing music and having food with Brahim and his friends, Abder and Aziz. And Abder was going back to Fez to get some merchandise for the store, and I talked him into bringing back a sintir for me. And that's kind of what got me started. At that time, there wasn't a ton of video. I don't even know if YouTube existed at that time. This was like 2000. So my learning process was pretty much, old school, just listening to recordings and trying to recreate what I heard on the instrument, and hanging out with the Brahim and the Moroccans and picking up some things from them.
Well, of course, that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to go to our first video. Tell our audience a little bit about this.
This is a song called Power Plant, meaning the plant in the green growing sense. It's a song from our album Live at Helsinki. It's a song I wrote. So when I first got into the sintir, my main attraction was to use it as an instrument for my own compositional purposes. I had a deep respect for the instrument and for the tradition that it came from, and I didn't just want to be a white guy that was trying to play Gnawa music. So I wanted to see what I could do on the instrument. So I started composing my own lines and my own riffs, and this is one of the songs that I came up with. And we did a video shoot with a couple of fire spinners, Jasmine Jade and Nikki Ray, and The song also features John Medeski and Brahim and Duke Levine and Dean Johnston and Mr. Rourke.
Cool. Well, that's great. Let's go to the video right now.
Yeah.
With Mike Rivard. And Mike, I wanted to ask you about a new CT that you're in the process of making.
Well, it's actually already been made, and this is our first album that we put out on vinyl too, which was really exciting for me. It's called "You Never Know," and the sessions were started before the pandemic. We recorded the album live in the studio, and actually did it to 2-inch analog tape. I really wanted to capture the live energy of the band in a way that the previous studio albums hadn't really captured. They were kind of done, layered, starting with basic tracks and then adding a lot of overdubs and editing and stuff. The inspiration for the record came from an experience that I had, actually a period of my life that started with an experience in the Amazon jungle in September of 2015. I was taking annual trips to the jungle with my sintir and working with some indigenous healers and at a meditation retreat. And during that trip, I developed a pulmonary embolism and kind of descended into a black hole of, where I just kind of lost the narrative, and I was seriously depressed for a few years. And playing Gnawa music was really instrumental for me in kind of rising from the darkness. I was dealing with terrible insomnia, and I just kind of threw myself into learnings, note by note, some of the Gimbri, which is another word for sintir, some of the Gimbri masters that I was listening to, like Mustafa Bekbo and Mahmoud Guinea. And, it took a few years for me to pull through it. And at the end, I decided to put the band together and go into the studio and see what we could come up with. I really wasn't sure if I had anything left to say.
No.
It was kind of a Hail Mary pass on my part. And
sometimes you got to get to that point, right? To find out what you got,
I guess, yeah. I wish I didn't have to go so dark, but
I hear you.
That was my process.
I know what you're talking about. So what's up with this next video?
So the video that we're gonna see is actually a song from our previous album, Electric Morocco Land. It's called Ben Deer Done That, and it started out just as a jam in the studio between myself and Brahim Fribgon playing Ben Deer and the drummer Eric Kerr, and then we kind of built on that. John Medeski plays on it, Duke Levine and Matt Kilmer and Mr. Rourke. And it's just kind of a funky number that's based on the rhythm that Brahim was playing on the Ben Deer, which was based on a Amazigh rhythm from the Atlas Mountains.
All right, well, let's go to the video right now.
What does he think he is doing?
Attention, please.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
All right, we are back with Mike Rivard. Mike, I wanted to ask you about touring. You've done quite a bit of traveling with your group, different parts of the world. So tell us a little about that.
Well, I'd have to say my favorite audience that we played for internationally is the Japanese audience. We were working with a promoter in Japan for a number of years and did like 5 tours of Japan. The first one was on the top of a mountain, Hotaka Mountain, at a rave festival called the Hotaka Mountain Fest. And that one really stands out in my memory because at the time, Brahim didn't have a U.S. passport. He just had a Moroccan passport, which is really kind of the lowest of the low when you're trying to get into Japan. So we weren't able to get a visa for him in time for the trip. So we traveled without him, made it all the way to the festival. It was hours before the show. We were being interviewed by a Japanese TV camera crew, and Brahim showed up, literally like an hour before we were to play. And it was probably one of the happiest moments of my life that he made it. And we got to do this amazing performance for the Japanese audience. And it was our first experience with Japanese production values.
Right.
Which, if you haven't experienced it, it's the best. They're just there to help in any way. I was like fiddling with my pedals, my pedal board, and instantly there was a guy standing there with a 9-volt battery and a screwdriver, just ready to help.
There you
and
go.
Alain Mallet was playing keyboards at the time, and he was, he's a smoker, and he had lit up a cigarette. He was looking around, and instantly there was an ashtray on his keyboard. And I was really impressed. Smokers in Japan, everybody carries around a little pocket ashtray. They're very conscientious about about the environment, which I was very impressed with.
All right, so we got another video coming up. Tell us a little bit about this.
So this was actually the first song I composed on the sintir, pretty much in the first year that I started playing the instrument. And we lost Mark Sandman in '99. He died of a heart attack on stage playing with morphine in Italy. And Mark was a huge, huge inspiration for me and a huge influence, as well as being a dear friend. And I came up with this riff and dedicated it to him and called the song Sand, which also, kind of relates to the instrument being a desert instrument and coming from the sands. And this performance was at Club Helsinki in Hudson, New York, which is one of our favorite venues to play, which sadly hasn't reopened since the pandemic. And it features John Medeski and the great slide guitar player David Tronzo and Matt Kilmer and Dean Johnston. And yeah.
All right. Very cool. Let's go to the video right now.
Yeah.
right, we are back with Mike Rivard, sintir player extraordinaire. Mike, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your instrument and about Gnawa culture from which the sintir comes. I know it's really important to you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think the thing that really attracted me to Gnawa music, besides a bass instrument being featured in it, I mean, the sintir is really the only pitched instrument besides the voice that's featured in the music. So it's pretty cool that that a bass instrument drives the music. But it's also kind of the original trance music, and I've always been drawn to trance music that kind of suspends time and puts you into an eternal sense of being that is kind of before you were born and after you die. And the Gnawa were originally West African people that were brought to Morocco like 600 years ago as slaves, and they're basically the healers in the society. People with all kinds of ailments come to them and are healed. And for me, as I get older, healing music is really what I'm drawn to. And as I mentioned, the music had a particularly healing effect on me, getting me out of my own malaise. The song we're going to hear is from the new album, and I actually learned the song when I was in Morocco from Mahmoud Gnawa, who's one of the great Gnawa musicians, and we recorded it on the new album. You Never Know. And this is actually the band live in the studio performing the version of the song that's on the album with Brahim, Duke Levine, Kevin Barry, Paul Schulteis, and Dean Johnson and myself.
That's great. Okay, let's go to the video right now.
Cool.
with Mike Rivard. Mike, I wanted to just thank you so much for coming on the World Fusion Show today and sharing your music with our audience.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Derek. It was a pleasure. I
I think
really,
it's so
I
great.
enjoy what you're doing. I've watched a lot of your episodes, and
Thanks. It's been a labor of love. And it's great to have another sintir player on the show to represent this very cool instrument.
well, thank you for having me. I don't know if I would put myself in the same realm as Hassan, but I'm striving to play better on the instrument all the time.
Well, you sound great. Thanks so much again.
Thanks.
Hey, it's Derek Jordan, and thank you for joining us again today on the World Fusion Show. It's been just great to have you, and we've got so many more wonderful shows and guests coming up, so please stay tuned and tell your friends, subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, and all that good stuff. You know what to do. Hey, I want to say a thank you to our sponsors, Mackenzie Family Charitable Trust, Chris Pratt, Nancy Feinberg, and Ron Dans for their generous support. And as we always like to say on the show, remember, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.